and welcome to yet another of our series and their sneak peeks previewing the Capture Conference 2022 to be held September 7th and 8th, just outside of Chicago. It's coming up soon. Obviously, we hope you enjoy this. We hope you enjoyed this video and interview with Mark in and of itself. But we also encourage you to use the URL that will appear on the screen in about a minute or so and register for the event. It's going to be a great event, especially with speakers like Mark here. We have with us today Mark Miller. He is Senior Vice President of Enterprise Solutions at Naviant.
Naviant,
Yeah,
you got it.
Naviant. I knew I was gonna mess that up. Yeah, thanks for joining us, Mark. And let's just dive right into that first question, which is just a basic for anyone that's out there that's new to RPA. You know, everybody's probably heard of it by now, but can you just give us a quick overview and explanation of RPA as a technology?
Yeah, so robotic process automation, RPA, is really, think of it as a software solution that allows you to automate and optimize your business processes by completing some of the manual tasks that might exist within those processes. It's focused on increasing accuracy and efficiency. And it's typically used in a process that's a high volume, kind of a repetitive task that's replicated the same way. And the software conducts that process the same way a human would. And it oftentimes works with existing systems and infrastructure, so it's typically a lighter lift to implement. So that, then when you start to combine other functions like artificial intelligence and machine learning, it allows it to adjust based on some of the data that's gathered. But at a high level, software solution that automates and optimizes your business process.
Okay, and you sort of held back a little bit because you know what the next question is, and so where is it commonly used?
I'll give you a couple of examples that we've used it, but pretty much just about any business process you can think of. That repetitive task, maybe you're moving data from one application to another, one location to another, or you're taking a piece of information out of an application and going to a website or another source to further fill out the content that you need to make a decision, perhaps. And so a couple of examples that we have would be property title insurance, real estate title insurance. So maybe an application comes in for that insurance, and that application includes what's called a parcel ID number. And the parcel ID number is used to track the deeds, the restrictions, any liens that might be placed on that property. And the reason you get insurance is when a transaction is taking place, when the property is changing hands, you don't want there to be any liens on that property, so you need to clear those. So in this case, RPA was used to grab the parcel ID. Well, I take that back. Capture was used on the front side to extract the parcel ID information and the county of origin. And then RPA took those two pieces of information and went and navigated to the county recorder's website to then conduct a search based on that parcel ID number and pull back all of the associated documents related to that parcel. From there, that collection of documents was sent to someone to evaluate further and kind of put human thought around determinations that need to be made. So at a really high level, that was one use case. Another use case similarly was in a retail business. This was a tile business. If you think of stone wall tile, floor tile for building and construction, this organization had a large retail presence and online presence. And the way they used RPA was as soon as a product that a customer wanted was placed into their cart, RPA would pick up the part number, know that that part number was associated with the manufacturer, and then automatically navigate to the manufacturer's portal to confirm the availability of stock for the quantity that the end user wants. And so that was typically a manual process. And what would happen, and why it was important, was, that was conducted typically after the sale was made. And oftentimes, if the quantity wasn't available, it led to, a lot of confusion, a lot of delays, and a potential lost transaction. And so they wanted to speed up that potential that, hey, we don't want to lose this captive customer in this transaction, so let's go ahead and let them know right away, hey, we need to make a different selection if the quantity wasn't available. And so kind of sped up that process and kept the customer captive in the long term. So a couple of just very high level examples.
That's kind of a cool customer service, customer focused use case. I like that. So what are, I think RPA, when it first came out, I think, as you're describing, it's a small, but as you just said, very powerful piece of technology. But I think people thought it was bigger than it is. What are some common mistakes that you see companies make when they consider it or even go into implementation?
Yeah, I think you hit it in the head. Was RPA was so sexy, a couple of years ago. It was
robots, right?
It was it was the hottest buzzword, and we found folks that people were trying to use RPA for everything, like, oh, this is revolutionary, which it is. Obviously, it is revolutionary, but trying to make it do more than maybe it was built for, and pushing the boundaries of the use case where it might not give them a return on investment. Multiple times we saw, hey, we want to implement RPA for this process, and we'd talk about the process, and it's like, well, it's only 0.25 FTEs or half FTE that we're going to automate. And the value proposition wasn't there, because now you're going to spend more for RPA than you might just to have someone manually complete that work. On the flip side of that, though, I'm going to kind of flip the question around, though. The value proposition has become, as we've seen this dramatic shift in the workforce, throwing people at a problem is becoming harder and harder than it used to be just a couple of years ago. And so on the value proposition side, RPA is almost a requirement in some cases, because you just can't find people to conduct some of that work. So while it might be a little bit more expensive, you're combining it with other BPM tools, capture tools, but it might be your only option. So I don't know if I answered your question specifically there, but kind of flipped it on its head just a little bit, if you don't mind.
Oh, no, that's actually a really good point. As the as the economy is basically running almost at full employment. There're just no bodies to throw at these simple problems. So obviously it's a Capture conference, and Capture's in the title, but process has always been equally important. So how does RPA work with both process as well as Capture tools?
Yeah, I mean, one of the questions that was asked of me, previously was, is RPA and Capture converging technology or diverging technology? Do they compete with one another? And I think that they actually complement each other very, very well. And when you bring Capture and RPA and other tools like workflow, business process management, I think of them like a musical instrument, right? Each one of them, it definitely has its play, and on its own creates very beautiful music. But really together, when you pull them all together, it makes beautiful symphony of sounds, right? And this orchestra effect. And that's really the digital transformation process. The sum of the parts is greater than each of the individual pieces. And so that's the way I think of these technologies. But even higher than that, when we pull back and think of digital transformation even more, technology is just one piece of that overall picture too, because people and processes are just as important, and maybe even more important in most cases when it comes to that digital transformation process. So back to answer your question more, specifically, they all work in conjunction with one another, and are finding ways to work with each other right now too. RPA can also be used to kind of guide a user through a process that reminds them of the next step that they need to take to follow along the way. And so, that's more of a guiding process than it is a fully automated, you never see the process taking place from RPA. And so that's really valuable when it comes to like highly regulated processes such as banking would be an example.
So last question for you is, not to mess with the analogy in your title, which is great, but is RPA from Mars and Capture from Venus? I have an idea how you're going to answer this, but.
Yeah, you're dating yourself with the Mars and Venus reference there as well, but that's okay. I understood it because I remember that book. So maybe I don't think they're from other planets per se. I like to think of them more as they're courting lovers, right? They're trying to figure out how they work together. They know they need each other, but it's complicated.
So it's a romantic comedy instead of a tragedy like Romeo and Juliet.
That's correct. It absolutely is. And the market is adapting and shifting and changing all the times. And we see that, most players and customers too understand that not any one technology is a silver bullet. It's the combination of all of them working together. And that's the power of the solution. It gives a lot of power to the customer now, and gives them some opportunities and capabilities that they may have never had before. So
fantastic. Mark, thank you very much for your time and humoring me on that last question. Look forward to seeing you in September, which is just a few short weeks away now.
Likewise, look forward to it, and thanks again for your time.